I'm Gabi with Gabi Designs. I am showing you today how I create my flowers. I paint a lot of floral. I do pretty much anything, but I've been really into the flowers since I moved here to Washington. So I just wanted to show you how I do things and how you can create your own flowers as well. First off, I am in love with the angle brush. It is angled and it gives you so much versatility. You could use it flat, or you could use it in a straight line, or you could even just curve it out, and it gives you so much versatility. Like, it's all I use. I have 3 sizes that I use. And I use other brushes too, but I tend to, everybody's got their favorite brush, and this is mine. So, and it really does help when you're making your petals. So it helps you, I'll show you, this is what I'm going to show you, the technique that I use. I call it the tip to tip technique. It basically, I'm going to show you with the black and white first, because I do a lot of black and white floral. And so let's get started. So let me turn this so you can see. So here's my canvas, gessoed. I have my black and white paint. I use paper plates, so much more efficient, because you could just throw it away after. So my tip to tip technique is, if I'm creating a flower, I'm going based off this Gerber daisy a little bit, and here I'll show you. It's just a photography photo, really in depth. I like the macro photography where you just get so much more detail and it's close up. So I'm taking my black and I'm only putting it on the shorter end of the angle, because I want my highlight to be on the outside. Then my highlight is going to be the white, and so this is what you end up with. So, and sometimes I dab a little water just to make it smooth when I go on the canvas. So here we go. Hopefully you can see this, how it's blending. Now there's a lot more black than I would prefer, so I'm just going to go over and put more white on my tip and go over it exactly the same spot pretty much, and do it again and pull in to the black a little bit, and it's going to show that you could see that shading that just happens automatically. And it's really just practice. So I mean, just take a little canvas and practice with it, really. Just keep doing some petals. You don't even really have to make, you know, a flower per se. You can just practice with shading. So, and another fun one is doing like tree branches. It shows you highlights, and it gives you that light source, you know, where all the light's coming from the left and the darkness is on the right. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then you go over, even still with your paint wet, and this is going to be a petal that's in front of it. So you just go over it like that, and then it automatically gives you that shadow underneath this petal. So it's pretty cool. I love it. I love shading. It's my favorite thing to do, which is probably why I love flowers, because there's so much depth to it. Now you see how you can see the two, like this one's definitely overlapping this one. So when you're starting with flowers, you're definitely going to want to start with your background first. But with Gerber daisies, they're kind of like all rippled around, you know, and you get to the point in the end where you're touching up and you're going over some things that you already did. And that's okay, like it doesn't matter. And petals are forgiving, you know, no petal is exactly alike, so even if it doesn't look exactly, it's okay. I mean, unless you're a perfectionist, and I'm actually not a perfectionist, so there's that. So I'm just gonna keep doing some petals. And I'm really just doing this angle. I'm not really forming the actual petal yet as much as you would think, because I'm gonna go back over, and this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. So I'm still keeping my dark on the short end of the angle, but I'm gonna go like this and make a full petal where it's facing you. So I didn't have enough white there, but you can do over and over, and you go back in, come up if you want. I know this one's probably hard to see with the camera view, but I'm not good at this video stuff, but here you go. So I just keep going over and getting the color I want, and if I want it more lighter, I just keep adding that white to the, and don't add any more black. Just black goes a long way, like it's very intense. So you really have to start off with more of the lighter color, because you really don't use it as much, because it just takes over. So you just keep going, and if you're getting like stroke line, just keep going over it the way you want it to come out. And then now that I have the inside, a flat petal showing, I'm gonna switch it out. I'm gonna put a little tip of black on my white and go opposite and put a little, I didn't even clean my brush, it's just keeping it like that. And then you go over this, and it kind of makes another definition of the petal. As you can see, it's kind of more flat because I'm kind of blending it in, so I can have like an empty spot. Now I'm going to just add more white to my tip without cleaning the brush, and I'm going to add like another little layer of that petal. See where I don't lose any of the background, but I have the front. Sorry if you could see that text message. And in the end, I go back and like clean up my edges like that. And sometimes you might mess it up and have to do it again and add more black and go over it again. But you kind of just do and get the result that you want. That's, you know, in the end. But to me, this is like the easiest way to do petals, and it's just fun. So now I ended up putting more black on my inside, and I probably should have did this, but you could even add right here. And it's okay if it's not like perfectly straight or whatever. Petals are really forgiving. That's why it's kind of fun to do flowers. You just, no two are alike. And some might be squiggly, and some might have like a tear in it. And, I just love doing them. And it's really fun. Like, you can really get into doing this shading. To me, it's relaxing. I love shading. It's like creating something with one stroke. It's fun. So now I turned my brush around, and I'm still using the black on the shorter end of the angle. I'm going to add the white. And I know it's like crazy because you don't think it's gonna, like, well, that looks like fingers. It comes out. So it's all about playing with your finger going up and down, and I'll show you, like, that's really important to keep your hand steady for the most part, is like holding your canvas, getting in the nitty gritty, and just pulling it down. You can go over that one spot to make that top part smooth. And just go in. And water does help. Like, a lot of people don't use, they use like the thinners and stuff, but it's not necessary. You could definitely use water to make your strokes a lot smoother, so it goes on really smooth. It's not that important to use like a thinner and stuff, I don't find. You just have to do a dab, and if you have like a drip on your brush, you have to like just dab that that drip off with like a paper towel or something. So now I'm starting to curve my petals just a little bit. And I'm making this one darker because it's technically behind this and underneath. And this one's going to have like a shadow where the petals in the back, under a shadow of this one. So, I don't know if you can see it from here, but I'll just keep going. And some people find it easier to just flip over their canvas too. You could totally do that. Flip over your canvas if you like this angle and you don't want to like get funky with your wrist. You could always flip the canvas over. It's sideways, upside down, it doesn't matter. Especially when you're dealing with a flower, because your view of it is not so critical. And sometimes I go, if I'm at this point and I'm losing maybe the value and the overall shape of the flower where I was really going for, I sometimes go like this, and like this, and I kind of shape out my petals where I want them to be. And so it gives you kind of a perspective of where you're going to go next, and that's helpful. So now that I'm getting onto this side, I'm going to start putting, because I'm still at this angle, I'm going to start putting my dark on the higher point of the angle, and then I'm going to put the white on the lower part, because I'm going under this area right here. Just keep going around. And when I pull my brush right here, I'm turning it with my thumb and this index finger, just slightly. And that takes some practice, that's all. This one, I'm bringing that around. It's more of like a inserted one. Now I'm going to do the white again at the top of the angle brush and go over it like that. And then go around, make another one that's coming out. Go back with more white. some of that white off. Put the black back, because I'm losing a little bit of black here. Just want to go back in. And it's okay if you do it too dark or the white when it starts blending. And actually, sometimes it comes out even better, like leaving that stroke there, you know, and gives kind of a highlight. And maybe it's not really in your flower petal, but if you like the way it looks and it's coming out good, just let it be. You know, I think that's a lot of people's mistake sometimes, is where they trying to make it too perfect. And, you know, sometimes just wants to do what it wants to do. So this one's a lot more textured than the other ones. And there's no reason. I'm just having more textured. Because sometimes, you know, petals are just different. So I'm going to pull one down. Sometimes if I get too much globs of paint, I just pull it off. And the edges do not have to be perfect yet. So that's all in like touch-up phase-ish. You know, you can go back in and touch up things and, you know, add more highlights to certain things. It's just happy little flowers. So this one, I was like, I need another petal. So I am pulling it with the black to add that shadow underneath that this petal right here. So I'm pulling it, but then I'm turning right here to where the tip is pointing into the flower and going in like that. So that's how you kind of add one that really supposed to be in the back that you wish you had. And you do the same thing. So there's that. And then I say I want more highlight on this one, so let's do that. And sometimes you have to wait to like go back over some things because there's just too much paint and it's not coming out the way you wanted it. You just wait till it dries, and then you can go back in and, you know, add some highlights or whatever you feel is necessary for a specific area. Or maybe your highlight's not, you know, as highlighted as you want, or you want to add more texture. Like this one's kind of straight. I'm gonna add a little bit more highlight to it. See what happens. Just twist it around, kind of make some flowy little strokes. And just keep going. This one I'm going to twist all the way around. Make it a straight view in one, just like I did up there. And Gerber daisies have like that kind of a rounded point end to it. So just do that. And if you like it like that, leave it. But I'd like a little bit more black in the center, so I'm putting that on the top. And it just gives it some more definition. Hopefully you could see that. Of course, zooming in would be better, but I'm trying to keep my paint. Acrylic kind of dries fast and it gets sticky, and that's a lot of times where I use water, especially when I want I'm still working like in the middle of the flower like this. I want more of a flow. See how that flows really good? I have a glob paint right here, which happens. But it's okay. Texture's fun on the canvas. Now this side, when you're working at the bottom, it's probably best that you flip over your canvas. It just makes it easier. But I've kind of been doing this for a while, so I don't really need to. And then the highlight's coming from the left side, so I'm going to start making these a lot lighter right here. And then if I don't find like these are not expressing the light like I'd like, I just go back in and add some white highlights. And a lot of times it's better if you wait till it's dry, because you don't want to do it sticky. You're going to get like these unwanted things. So here's some highlights. But then again, you could wait. You could wait to add stuff. So I'm back with the white on the top of my angle and a little bit of black. I dabbed it so I didn't have too much of a glob of the black. Twisting it around, and then, you know, sometimes just playing with your wrist and your fingers and twisting it around, that's just practice too. Play around with that. It really creates something different, you know. It really gets some definition and some smoothness to what you're kind of going for, especially with the Gerber daisy. White. So this, I kind of want more white in this one. Let's say the petals lifted a little bit. And see how that comes out. Add some texture to this one underneath. Give it a little bit more definition. And you can go back in after. I kind of like to do all my petals and get at least my perspective of where my flower is going to be completely around. And then I let that dry a little bit, and then I go back in, and then that's when I start to do the little ones. But I'll show you that in a little bit. Not quite there yet, because you know Gerber daisies have those little tiny petals that come out from the middle seed part. Another black that I use that's really fun and so dark and intense is this golden fluid acrylic, and it's the carbon black. It is straight up black, and it's very thin. It's really fun to play with just a regular white acrylic. I use that a lot, and I combine that black fluid acrylic with my regular white acrylic, and it really makes some intense petals. And it's fun to play around with different mediums, you know. Of course, check and see which ones you could use together, because not everything's compatible, you know. Like oils, they're very temperamental. They don't go with everything. So that's the gist. I'm kind of trying to get the sense of where I want my petals in this end part to be. More highlight, but more intense in a way, because it's closest to the light source. This part, I'll show you, I'm going down, and then I curve the back bottom and go down, and it gives you like the petals. Once you put those little tiny petals on top, it's going to really give you the idea that it's going into the middle and it's coming out like, you know, like it would naturally. Put an intense black shadow here. Go back with some highlight. I'm gonna wipe my brush off a little bit because I'm getting, you know, it gets to where everything starts to blend and you're not getting what you want, so. And when you're doing this technique, your brush strokes show a lot because you're really smoothing it right on the canvas. You're blending it right there. So you have to be a little careful when it comes to doing it like that. We're gonna make a little funky one. And it doesn't really matter what these bottom parts look like because they're going to be covered up with those tinier petals that they have in the Gerber daisy. And once I add that black stroke, no big deal. You can just put white over it, or you can make another petal. Sticking out in the back somewhere, you know. Okay, so now I'm going to clean off my brush because I got my outside petals. I'm done with that. And I'm going to switch to a more of my medium-sized brush. there's so much paint on here, I don't even know what size it is anymore. So, it's medium. Smallish. It's definitely a smaller brush. But you could wait and have this dry, but just so I could show you how it's going to look real quick before we run out of time. Let's start with where you started off as the most driest area, and you can do the same thing like that. Put your white and a tiny little black, like that much. You can see it, not too much. And then you just go over, make your little petals. And these are your bigger ones. So you can have more on the in front of those. So it's still, it doesn't matter what it looks like in the inside part. I tend to use my pinky a lot. It keeps my stability of how I want to use my hand with my brush. And sometimes you're not able to do that. And that's when flipping your canvas over is helpful. Okay, that one didn't get as much black as I want, but I can blend it in. You know. Now I'm going to put some black on my tip, the taller piece, because I'm starting to lose some light. And you can start going under each petal. And if you need more white, just add the more white. Now we need some more black. Just put a touch in the middle. Okay, I did that wrong angle. But that's okay. It all works out. Texture. So now that we finished that outside bigger part, then we're going to get smaller. And this you want to usually let dry because those little ones tend to use a lot more to get the definition you want, and maybe you want to like go back and put some really darker ones, and you can always add if you want. Let's see if that's dry. You know, some little ones in the back. Or not, but I usually wait till it's dry. Now, let's keep going into the middle. And this is where it gets darker. And a lot of times, I just do some black. And I take it in like globs. And I'll show you, like, this is what my paintbrush looks like. Globs. And then I go in and I kind of do that. Just tap it in, and then let's say I want more white, get globs of white, and then go like that. This is where it gets fairly easy, because it doesn't take much to kind of get the look you want, and as long as you're keeping your highlight fairly on the same spot. I push it, turn it, flip it around, and back. You see how that comes together, and you can see the texture? And it doesn't take much. Like, I find the globs are so much, I call it globs. It's just texture, basically. But you're keeping, like, it's separate. You're not blending anything in here at this point. You're just going over spots right in front of the end of that last petal thing that you did. Add some more highlight. And this you can go over and over if you want. And then now I'm going to get darker, so I'm going to have mostly more black. I'm going to do that on the inside, pull it out. And in fact, you could do a whole flower like that if you wanted to. Some flowers, you know, they look like that. More of an impressionist, abstract view of it. So there's that. Now let's see if you want to go back over, and then of course once it's dry it's a little bit harder. But if you take go back and take your big, we're going to add a stem, just for fun. I don't have a picture of the stem, but I know where my light source is, and you're definitely going to want a thin, your paint really pretty thin, because you're going to kind of go down one stroke, in one stroke. Let's say it's going this way. And I use my pinky to kind of get where I'm going, because that's where I want my flower to go. And you just go over it. Now this one's a little bit more tedious. You could use a ruler if you want it really straight. Then you could wipe your brush off. You could straighten your black line, because sometimes when you have your black on the shorter angle, it's not pulling down as flat as you might want it. So you could just go in and go down and really clean up that line. And again, you could use a ruler if you want. Helps you keep your hands straight, whatnot. And I'm making smudges, but you know, it's black and white. I can go in with white. And if you wanted a background, of course you do that first and foremost. And let's say I want a leaf. Let's add a leaf to this real quick. Let's say it's coming from the shadow part. I'm going to go right over this, twist up, trying to just smooth out everything. Go back with the black a little bit. Not too much highlight there because it's pretty dark, so there's really not any highlights, but it still is poking out from your flower area. I'm going to pull that down a little bit, like it's coming from there. And that's just practice too. And if you want some texture on your leaf, just go in and put some texture. Oh, I guess I'm making that bigger. So if you mess up, doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I like to have fun with my flowers, and even though they might not come out exactly like the photo that I'm painting from, or I'm fine with that, because I think, you know, my flower's unique then. This is bothering me. I need more darkness right here. See, I can go in, but if it's still sticky, don't go back in yet. Wait till it's dry, because then you're going to get funny little, it's not going to do what you want it to do, you know. Or just add some water, dab that off a little bit, and then go in and blend it with a dry brush. And you want more black, since you blended it, you can go back in, add that darker black. It's not enough black. So there you go. There's a Gerber daisy. So I hope that was helpful. You could go and look at my site. It's gabidesigns.art instead of .com. It's .art. And I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. And see you guys soon. Stay safe.